Well, just 7 weeks left until BC's provincial election, and the collapse of BC United has left many candidates thinking about their next move. Now, earlier this week, party leader Kevin Falcon announced that he was suspending the party's election campaign. And for more now on how party members are dealing with it, we have reached Karin Kirkpatrick. She is the sitting BC United MLA for West Vancouver-Capilano. She's also the Shadow Minister for Housing and Childcare. She joins us now. Good morning to you, Karin.
Good morning, Stephen.
Thank you for being with us this morning. First off, how did you hear about this news, about the end of BC United?
Well, like many of my colleagues who have dedicated, decades to this party, we heard about it on Twitter. Nobody had spoken to us. It was a complete shock. But hearing about it on Twitter, that just made it even worse.
And tell me what went through your mind when you saw it. I mean, often, if I'd look at Twitter, which is now X, I would, doubt a lot of what I see on it.
Well, I think that was it, too, is that we were all scrambling to try and verify this and also to understand what it was. Was Kevin stepping down? What was happening? Were we going to have a new leader? It was very confusing. But no, ultimately, we had a caucus meeting and it was explained to us that he's not stepping down, but he is overseeing the dismantling of the party.
And this was, they told you that this was the dismantling of the party. This was not was this pitched as we're merging with the Conservatives?
I've never heard the word merging. I think we are capitulating, and then there was some horse trading going on in terms of which MLAs, sitting MLAs, and which of the candidates are going to run versus the already appointed Conservative candidates in the riding. So we have yet to really understand what the legal structure is going to be. We don't understand who the executive board is going to be. So all of that is still up in the air. There's a lot of confusion. We just know that all the nominations that had been filed with all of these wonderful candidates and MLAs were pulled by the party on Wednesday as well. Kevin Falcon contacted Elections BC and said none of us are any longer running for BC United.
And what, did you know that at the time that he pulled those nominations?
No, no one knew that until afterwards. Information was coming into us in dribs and drabs. We don't understand what the constitution of the party even allows to happen. And this didn't go to the membership. So I've got a lot of people who have supported this party for a long, long time. We've been asking them for money very recently, saying, look, we got to make sure there's a middle party. So, no, it's appalling the way this was handled.
And now tell me about the money part of this, because, I mean, here you are as a candidate, a sitting MLA, but also a candidate getting ready to fight another election battle. Had you already spent money, or had you made commitments that would cost money?
Yes, people had made commitments and they'd spent money. I mean, most of our candidates and sitting MLAs have a garage full of election signs right now. These are things that, they cost money. They were committed to office space, all of these things. But when we went into our accounts the other day, all the money was gone. So that is still up in the air. How are these candidates who put their faith in Kevin and their faith in the party going to be guaranteed that they're going to be made whole so that they're not left on the hook with financial liabilities? So
you're talking about the individual accounts that you each had as candidates?
Yes, as riding associations. So each riding association who has been, raising money over the years, and certainly the new candidates who have been expected to raise money, that money disappeared from the accounts. And so, and then we've all been shut out of the system, even though, someone like myself and my colleagues, we're still sitting MLAs for BC United.
Right.
And we no longer have access to the money that we've raised or even the information on the party. And again, nobody knew this until they tried to access the system, that none of us could get into it, and our account balances were zero.
Well, election or no election, you're still the MLA for at least 7 more weeks.
Certainly I am. Yeah, and so you would think that we would still have access to our own information in terms of bank accounts and membership and all of those things.
And so have you sought an explanation from Kevin Falcon or anybody else in the party.
We have sought explanations, but they've been pretty light, and questions haven't been answered. We have a lot of very nervous people out there who have made financial commitments, but then the issue is bigger than that. There have been people who have, Kevin asked for our trust and our faith. And even though it's been tough in the last little while, we have stood behind him and we've demonstrated that. We've got around 52 candidates who have taken time out of their life. And I know that costs money. Some have left their jobs so they could do this campaigning. They've knocked on thousands of doors. They've raised thousands of dollars. And yesterday they were thrown to the curb with, and I will say the caucus actually got, Kevin actually came and spoke to us. Well, all of those other candidates were just left in the wind with no information other than him popping onto a phone call for about 4 minutes and then popping off, giving them no information in terms of what their future looks like.
There are 93 ridings. How do you expect things to play out in those ridings that had both BC United and Conservative candidates running?
Well, there are no BC United candidates running anymore. But what's happening now is we've got a lot of candidates sitting around waiting to get a phone call to see if they're going to be invited to run for the BC Conservatives. So again, many people's lives are on hold. But of course, there are many of those candidates who are centrist, who got into politics because they wanted to have a moderate voice. And they're being completely left out. And I think the majority of British Columbians now have no home politically.
Do you consider yourself among those people?
Absolutely. Even if I was running, I certainly would never have got that phone call from John Rustad because I'm too progressive in my views. And I think that, the majority of British Columbians, we should run government like a credit union. On one side, you've got fiscal responsibility, you've got good tax policies, you support business. But that's so we can invest heavily on the other side of the balance sheet on world-class health care and addiction support and all of those other things that are so important. And now we've got two parties, like an American system where you've got an ideological left and you've got, and when I say BC Conservatives, I'm generous in calling them that because they are right of BC Conservatives. My supporters were progressive Conservatives and federal Liberals. Mm-hmm. And they have really miscalculated this because all of these BC United voters, they're not going to go to the Conservatives. A lot of them are now going to go back to the NDP. And I think that, no victory lap for the Conservatives yesterday, but there should be a victory lap for the NDP.
Yeah, you really think so? You think that the NDP has more to gain from this than the Conservatives do?
Well, time will tell, but if I look at X, which I hate to do every morning, and the emails that I received over the last few days, there are a lot of people who feel very disenfranchised now, but they said they're going to vote NDP now. They weren't going to, but they're less scared of an NDP government than they're scared of a BC Conservative government.
If you could say something to Kevin Falcon right now, what would you say?
Come on, man. This was not the way to handle it. 6 months ago, we would have had a fighting chance if he wanted to say, I'm not going to push through this, I'm going to step down. And we had an opportunity to rebuild even in a short period of time. But when it's 3 weeks out from an election, it feels almost that this was done on purpose so that we would not have an opportunity to rebuild. And, a number of my candidates are being encouraged to run as independents. But that means they're going to have to raise money and launch a campaign and do all of those things they need to do in 3 weeks, which is going to be almost impossible.
And Karin, for you personally, what happens to you?
Well, I mean, I wasn't intending to run again. I had decided for personal reasons. It's a tough job, and you're away from your home quite a bit. About 6 months ago, I gave Kevin lots of notice and helped to find a candidate. But right now, Stephen, honestly, I have to calm down. I've been upset for 3 days now, but I feel that there's an obligation for center people to try and still stay in the legislature so we can add that moderate voice. And I don't know what I'm going to do now. I've had some phone calls with a number of different options, maybe as an independent. There will be BC United candidates and BC United sitting MLAs who will run as independents. And it will be really interesting to see how that plays out.
Karin, great to hear you this morning. Thank you so much for the time and really appreciate your candor.
My pleasure, Stephen. You have a great day.
You too. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
It's Karin Kirkpatrick, the BC United MLA for West Vancouver-Capilano. She is also the Shadow Minister for Housing and Child Care. And it sounds to us like she hasn't decided about whether she's running again. May go as an independent.